Hey everyone, so we've talked about the tools that are going to be required, and like I said, I'm going to do this kind of real time, and what I've done is, let's see here, I've got my stopwatch here, and I'm going to start and stop this, based on when you would typically be working. So if I stop to explain something, I'll stop the stopwatch, and at the end, in theory, we'll have a good running time of how long it'll take average person to do this. Now, first step I'm going to do today is actually take off the 3-point hitch. That's not really required, but I do have this eye match on this tractor, and so it's in the way if you have an implement on. So I'm just going to take it off completely. That's going to extend the amount of time it takes to install, but if it's something that is too long, if I go to 92 minutes, it took me 2 minutes, I might take it off. But, trying to make this as real world as possible. So, I'm just going to put this somewhere. I'll just show it to you whenever I start. So, let me actually... I'll get my PPE gloves on. Try not to cut myself. Okay, here we go. So we're starting the clock. Set that to the side. And I'm not going to take the eye match off. I'm just going to do it this way. So take the pen out. Look this forward. And I'm going to smother it here. Take off the stabilizers. Easy enough. Lift this up, and out here. Those are off. Pull these. That pin down there. Down. So this off. It's a little bit heavy. Maybe I do. Those are off. Put this down. All that in one piece. Took 2 minutes. One thing I didn't mention earlier is you'll need something, forgot about this one, 13 millimeter. You can use your 13 millimeter socket that I talked about, but you need something to hold it. So add to the required list 13 millimeter. I forgot this because I leave my PTO shield off. Pull those. Put these back in. my pins. These pins to the side. And there we have it. I'm gonna go ahead and stop my timer for the moment. 3 minutes and 41 seconds. If you don't have an eye match on yours, it's probably gonna be a little bit less. You'll have the rest of that. So, that's it for that step. I'll come back with the next step of taking the tire off and the seat. All right, we have the 3-point off. Next thing to do, and I say this is about the second to hardest thing in this installation, is take off the seat. So, tools you'll need, extension, 6mm, screwdriver, 13mm. So, let me, I gotta remember to do this. Oops. Start the timer. And you'll start with your seat either all the way back or all the way forward. So this one's all the way back. And there are 2 screws, one here and one here, that are Phillips head screws that we should take out first. Now really, the only difference in the 1023 and the 1025 is the 1025 has a knob here on how quickly the 3-point goes down. That's obviously not here on the 1023. And if you read the instructions for anything that from John Deere that tells you to do this, there's actually on that ball there's an Allen key, and you take the handle off. I don't do that. I just pull this back. You really only need to take this off far enough to get to these 2 bolts here. So I've got these off. My 13mm. So put those there. I'm not the best with organizing. Not 13mm, 10mm. Sorry. Actually, these are, I'm pretty sure these are 13 on the 1025, so that's what threw me. Take these off, 10mm on the 1023, 13 on the 1025. Now on the 1025, one of the other major differences is there's a plate here that, it's really a beauty plate, I would say. And so you have a cover here and a cover on this side that you have to deal with on the 1025. This bolt off. Now this cover is loose, so just pull it back. Oh, and I dropped, there's a spacer. I dropped one. Keep that in mind. But what you're trying to do is to get to underneath here. Go to your 6mm. And I have not had to use a wrench on this. It's probably a 13mm. But unfortunately, it's not welded on. So you do have to use a nut. So take that nut off. Put it back. Come to the other side here and get in the way of the camera probably. Place it down on that side. I do need to put a wrench on this one. I'll take a guess at 13mm. Let's see. Well, I guess I could confirm. again, I believe this is the second hardest thing. The first hardest thing is tapping a hole, and it's probably only the first hardest thing because most people don't have as much experience with that. All right, now that we have that, take this, bring the seat all the way forward. Make sure it's lubricated. Okay, let's see if we can do it out. So this is a bad place for all of your stuff. Not a good place for it. Let's see if we can, oh yeah, we can get to it. So let me stop this so I can reposition the camera. There we go. So the bolts that we're talking about are these two here. I will start my timer again. So on the 10:25 hour, these you really need to move the seat forward to get to these bolts. 1023E, that wasn't really necessary. Other thing is, I've already pulled this off because I've bypassed it. That's something that we'll have to deal with. You may have to deal with if you still have those on. Okay. Now the seat is free. And what I found is this thing will smash your fingers good, so you'll, depending on how much you care about this, pull that out. It stays with the tractor. Grab it by the seat belt. I don't know if you can see this. Nope, you can't see this. Back up. Oh yeah, you could probably. Grab it by the seat belt piece, and it won't bite you. Put that out of the way for the moment. I'm going to stop the timer here. We're 10 minutes in. Let me just kind of give you a view of what you're going to be looking at. This is the original feed tube. This is the PTO, what's called a PTO Manifold. The reason it's called that is because, I won't be able to do it here, so I can do this. Is because this right here is called the PTO switch. So this is actually a combination proportional flow divider PTO switch with a minimum pressure valve for actuation of this switch. So it's 3-in-1, and that's what it has to say on the tractor. So that's what you've got, and while I'm here, I'll just show you a few things. This right here is the implement tube that we're going to be tapping into. This goes over to your SCV here, and then this feeds everything. Right now, this tractor doesn't have Power Beyond. You can see a Power Beyond loop would be right here. Doesn't have a third function. What it actually does have is the independent deck lift, but that actually runs off the mid SCV based on this. So there's no activity or things to be in this area. Now everything on the tractor that is an additional implement happens on the right side. Everything for the HydrosPlus happens on the left side here. So this is the implement, this is the steering, and we'll get a closer look at that here shortly. All right, so far we're about 10 minutes in. We've got the seat off. We took the 3-point hitch off, and now we have access to everything we need to have access to. Okay, we're back. After readjusting the camera, which I would say this is not something you'll probably need to do, but if you want to videotape, if you want to film your installation, that's okay with me. So let me get my 10 minutes in. Let me start my stopwatch. Now, one thing I did not mention earlier is another required tool is going to be a jack, because you have to take the wheel off. So I'm recommending that you jack it up on this side against the frame. You can jack it up in the center and the back. That's where I've been doing it for the most part, but this is not the best stopwatch here. This will be out of the way a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and start this. Got my jack. Get it jacked up here. Getting this. Doesn't have to be high. They never done. Here. Store your lug nuts in your favorite place and move your tire out of the way. Okay, I'm gonna stop my timer. I'm gonna talk to you just for a minute. Take a minute. All right, so let's show you what we now have access to. This is where the flow divider is going to mount. Now, if you have a 260B backhoe, you're actually gonna have a subframe that leverages this area here, and it actually covers these bolts. So for a installation like this that does not have a 260B subframe, I provide spacers so that the flow divider mounts like this. This is an older model. On the newer models, these are bigger bolts, but that won't affect anything. Now, if you have a 260 backhoe, I don't yet have a good solution, but I have parts on the way. I should have that within the next couple of weeks, because you actually have a subframe that comes out here, goes forward, connects to the front of your to the front end loader. So I think what's ultimately going to happen there is I'm going to actually mount it to that subframe. That's going to change the distances just a bit, but we'll get that worked out. So if you have one, just know if you're watching this today, when it's posted, it might be a week or two, but we'll get that solved. The other beauty of this particular tractor, this right here, so can you see that? This is part of the independent lift. Because it has independent lift, we don't have the 3-point lift that comes back and connects to the 3-point arm. So there's a piece that goes here that comes down. So this is actually a lot more open than some of the tractors, like my personal tractor. So this will be good for us to see exactly what's happening. If you have this arm, you will have to work around it just a bit. It's not hard to work around. You could actually take it off over here. I just took it off here and I just work around it. So this will give a little bit of visibility. This tractor is very dirty. So up next, we will start loosening things, taking tubes off and getting ready to make the modifications. Okay, I've repositioned the camera. We are 11 minutes in and we are ready to start taking tubes off. See. Probably won't need it, but I'm gonna go ahead and start my timer here, and then I'll have to change camera position. So here we go, 11 minutes. So first, what you wanna do, this is a 15/16 down towards you. So simply loosen this up. And it's probably better to have your 3-point up. I don't have mine up right now. But if you remember, you can start your tractor. Once you have this off, you can't start your tractor. All right, simple as that. Let me pause my timer and then reposition the camera here. See if I can do this without stopping it. Hopefully it's not too annoying. All right. So where we're headed now is right here. This is the same tube. This is the primary feed. from the pump to the flow divider. So this is also going to be a 15/16. This one will be a little trickier because you don't have as much room. I put my camera right in the way. Let's see if I can do this. Oh, there we go. There we go. And these are compression nuts. So once they're loose, it's pretty easy, typically pretty easy. Actually, I'll tell you that, and here I am struggling with it. Well, I'll do it this way because there's a chance. Oh, that's just really easy to do. So. Now, I'm noticing something if you're on the 1023E, and I'm going to do this as a part of this, but I can pull this right off. Now, on the 1025R, you cannot do that because right here on the 1025R is the position control. So let me show you what you're going to have to do on that piece. You need to grab your 13 millimeter, no, 15 millimeter. Right. Grab your 15 millimeter, and there is a bolt right here that has to come out. I can see this. And the reason it has to come out is that's what provides the clearance for the tube to come out. So I'm going to take this out from a timing point of view, but clearly we don't need this. And I'll tell you that the clearance is just enough. Pull this bolt out. And effectively what you're going to do, make sure I get this good angle on this, is you'll take your tube and you'll twist it around and it'll come up, and literally there's going to be, put this down, enough room. If you have to flatten that out and it has to come through. You'll see it. It'll be obvious to you when you actually do this. But you do have to, on the 1025R, you do have to take this nut out. As soon as you do, you can put it back in, because we're not putting our tube in this same spot with the HydrosPlus kit. Now, any of you that are putting this on a machine that's under warranty, you know, this is going to be probably one of the things that, you know, you'll have to do. You'll take that out and then you'll have to end up putting this back in, actually this way, putting it back in, connecting it back up, if you decide that you have to put it back on. So I've got that off. I'm going to pause my timer here. A little bit of talking there, but I think it's all fair. So set your primary feed tube to the side. And here's what we have. So primary feed tube is off. Now the other thing you want to do while you're here is take the same 15/16 wrench, and there's a nut on this fitting that you just took the feed tube off of. So another bad camera position. Loosen this nut, because we're going to take that fitting and we're going to turn it the other direction. Okay? Let me reposition the camera and we'll come back on the other side. Okay, we're back. We've repositioned the camera here for a better angle. What we're going to be working on is taking off this, this is a proportional flow divider, sorry. So, we're 14 minutes in. I'm going to go, you're going to need a 7/8, I think, and a 13/16. So I'm going to go ahead and start this. Let's see. Actually, you might need just a 13/16. So 13/16 to loosen this. This one's going to be better loosened from the top, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to loosen this. This is the steering circuit. This is where it gets fluid. And I'm also going to reach back here on the bottom is the button to push, and just shake this loose. This is the PTO switch. This comes from the front. So just let that loose. And the other thing I mentioned, so I turn this, I loosen this because we're actually going to take this. Oh, I guess I'm going to have to do that from the top. Oh, no, here we go. We're going to point it this direction. So we're losing a little fluid there. That's going to happen. The whole overall fluid loss is probably something on the order of maybe a half a cup. I doubt you lose, some people may not lose even that much. Loosen this up. This is on the implement circuit. So that's loose. We just needed, in that case, we just needed a 13/16. So now I'm gonna go in, this is the 6mm. Make sure it's seated in there good. Break this loose. Oops. Really not quite enough for him to do a full circle. This is something, if you had a 3/8 impact, you could zip this baby off real easy, but like I said, I'm going with this approach so we know the true timing if you're just using all hand tools. Okay. Make sure that's seated. Break it loose. And one other thing you can do is pull this back, get it out of your way. That's the PTO selector, by the way, if you're not familiar. Now, some of you who've gotten, if you're watching this and you already have your kit and you have yours on, you're actually going to see that there is a new improvement now where, oops, pull that out, where we don't have to take this fitting off, so we don't have to take this off, which makes it nicer. We've got a fitting that goes on here. So I'm going to stop my timer, reposition my camera, and we'll get up to the vise. Now, before I go, that's dirty. These two O-rings, keep in mind, these are there. Make sure they're there as you put things back on. So probably a good time to do a little cleanup here. Okay. Not that important, but those O-rings are important. Okay, repositioned here. And I just realized I'd made a mistake. On the required tools, you will also need a 3/4 wrench. So I'll amend that somehow or redo it. 3/4 wrenches for this. We're going to take the top off here. So this goes to the steering cylinder or circuit. That stays. This stays, but this will come off. So, and the proportional divider will come off. So let me get my timer started. We're 17 minutes in, 18 minutes in. Start the timer here, as you can see. Ooh. Okay. So, tighten this up a little bit. Take this top one off. And again, if you're watching this and you've got a kit already and you put it on, and it was a little bit more elaborate, but this is going to be better for the future. You don't have to take this fitting off. You don't have to take the PTO switch out, so that's nice. And then we have a plug to put in here. So this is this is basically the same size fitting, yet it's a plug. Goodness. It's the right size. So put this in. Now these O-ring Boss fittings, don't have to crank them down tight. Just get them nice and snug. You'll be good. Now the second one is, I'm losing one I had. Okay. So your 1-inch socket that I said, and it's got to be thin wall. Ideally, it's a 6-point. Put it on here. Take a hammer or something. Get it seated in there. You do not want to not get it seated. It will not work for you. Now, this is where I would use, if you get this seated, you have a 1/2-inch impact, use your impact. Pull this out. This is the cap to the proportional divider. Now this looks a little bit, can't get it out, so I'm gonna have to pull this out of the vise. And there's just this proportional valve in here. Uh-oh, got it on my timer. Let's see. Now this probably won't happen. Oh, come on. But if it does, you'll have to, well, I'm not doing a good job of showing this. And I did not have the tools at the ready to pull this out. Let's see, my timer's still going, but yeah. Find a screwdriver. Interesting. I'll let the timer keep running here just because when you're doing this, it's not perfect. I'll show you what I'm dealing with as soon as I get it out of here. Hopefully. No. I'm going to take this back off and I'm going to use, I'm taking this plug back off. Let's see if I can use this. There we go. Just to loosen that up. And essentially what you're looking at, so that was, you know, not as planned, but again, not everything's going to go as planned. So I'm going to leave this in. Let me see. Better camera angle would have been better. So this is the proportional divider. And if you've seen my videos before, come on. Seen my videos before, what you're probably accustomed to seeing is something that looks like this. Well, this valve is actually screwed into this cap. So in this case, this was kind of tight there and it did not come with it. So what I did was I took this back off because I already put that on, just took a screwdriver in and just flicked it up just a bit, loosened it up, and now it's ready to go. Now here's the other thing. So let me go ahead and put this on. And then there's a plug here, which I have misplaced the, oh, come on, the 3/8 Allen. So I'm gonna have to look for it, which is normal for me. You guys might be a little better keeping up with your tools. Well, I don't know what I did with it. So what I'm going to do for the moment, so that nobody gets bored watching this, that's not going to fit. I'm going to stop the timer. I'm going to stop the video, but you get the idea here. I'm going to go find my 3/8 and I'll tighten this up. And then the next step to this is putting this back on the tractor. Okay, I'm back. I did finally find the 3/8 Allen head. Tighten that down, tighten this down, and again, these are O-ring fittings, so don't crank them down like you would a pipe thread. Simply snug them down tight, and you'll feel when they stop. So we're back at the tractor. Let me start my timer. Let's see here. And so right now we're at 24 minutes in. I would say, I think we're about half-ish way done. That's just how I feel about it, but we'll see. The next step will be tapping a hole, or actually getting everything together and then get ready to tap the hole. So let me start the timer. Ensure that you have both of your O-rings here. So once you have that, and again, this is really nice because this access is a little bit better than what I'm accustomed to working on with my tractor. But go ahead and get this started. That's how I do it. You guys might have your own methods. I'll get one started. I hit the camera. Get the second one started. And again, I probably would recommend hand tools on this, but you guys know your style best. If you are always using 3/8 impact or stuff like this, go for it. Now, one thing you might want to do, I don't think it's necessary, but it's probably always a pretty good idea, is to go ahead and put some Loctite on these. They will have Loctite on them coming out. So with as much vibration as you have, always generally a good idea for bolts like this. But I'm going to torque these down good, and there we go. Okay, so the flow divider's back on, and now you only have the steering circuit to connect on this side. Okay. And grab your 13/16 that walked off from you. These are O-ring as well. Give it a good snug, but you don't try to over torque it. Go ahead and plug in your PTO switch. Okay, so at this point, we've got everything ready for the new flow divider that's going to go here. So that'll be in the next shot here. Oh, let me stop my timer. 26 minutes. Okay, so here's the flow divider, and it'll come like this, and it has these caps on. You can go ahead and take it off. You may have a little hydraulic fluid running out of this. Now I've kind of preset these a little bit, but this actually isn't preset very well. I'm kind of doing this intentionally because you're going to have to adjust these just a bit to make them work for you. So what I'm doing here, this is really where the flow divider is going to go. And one improvement that I've made, if you already have a kit, you may not see this, is I've put 3 holes here. And I think my recommendation is going to be, and we're going to test it on this one, that you catch the top 2. In most cases, the third one's more of an optional hole. And that's because this is barely big enough to fit on here, so that'll give you more flexibility in your up and down on this. So this is one of the tubes that comes in the kit. This is actually what I'll call the steering tube. I'm going to loosely put this on here. Oh, you know what? I do have to start my timer, so I'll talk and let it run for just a minute. So 27 minutes we're in so far, so I'll start my timer. So, so I did start this already. And what I'm actually going to do, and yours should come like this, but I don't know why on this one I did not put it out. as much as I typically do. So it needs to be at a 45-degree angle here. So I'm gonna take this over to the vise. I'm gonna let the timer run just to get a sense of what it might take. So timer's still running. I got this adjusted just a bit. So I've started putting this on, and then I'm going to loosely put this on. And I'm doing this because I want to make sure that this gets in the right place so I can punch my holes and get ready to tap them. So let me adjust the camera on the fly here. The timer's still on. Here we go. This is the main feed tube. Got some trash on it right now. Clean that off. So I'm going to stick this in and loosely connect it here. And we may have to pull this off. If we have to move this in or out, we'll have to pull it off. This is 15/16. So there we go. Move back to this side. Let's see what we're doing here. And so you can see this is close, but not exactly. So there's going to be some adjustment that has to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and loosely put this on here and just kind of see where this lands. So with that. I think this needs to come down just a bit. Yep. Okay. So I'm going to pull this off. And what I'm going to do is just turn this out just a bit. I'm going to turn this one out just a bit. So the one on the top, and you may have to do this in a vise. I may have to do it in a vise. You can do this with the 7/8 wrench. Let me go to the vise and do that quickly. Timer's still on. Okay. So all I did was move them around just a bit so that I think they'll, now these will kind of naturally, I may have moved this one too far. This one feels good. Yep, I moved this one too far. So I want to show you this because the reality is these may not be exactly perfect. Have to do this on the vise or I can do it here. I better go to the vise. Okay, so got a dog hair or something there. Loosely put this one on. Loosely put this one on. Looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is take my punch that I mentioned, this 5/16 punch, stick it in here. Get it where I think I want it. The second one might have been a little sloppy. Okay. 2 marks, one there. Oh, you know what? Not happy with that first mark, so, and this is how it's going to go for you potentially, depending on exactly, you know, how everything lines up. So because I'm doing it this way, I'm actually just going to drill and tap the first hole, and then come back and do the second hole. So there's the first hole. And so I've got my mark on the first hole. I realize I already did the second hole, but I'm going to do that after I put a bolt in the first hole. So let me get my camera set up a little bit differently, and we'll do the drill and tap. Okay, I actually never turned off my timer, so I lost a little bit of time there, but no big deal. So I've got my mark here, and it's a little bit close to the top, so I'm actually going to bring it down just a skosh because, oops, sorry about that. Because I don't want to drill too close to that. And I think I've got the flexibility here. So here we go. Start with the drill. Make sure that hole's cleaned out like that, nice and good, because the tap is sized for this bit. So something you can use that'll make your life a little easier is a little cutting oil. I say cutting oil, this is just seafoam. You can use WD-40, but that'll make it just a little bit easier. So the key to this is to make sure you don't force it. So this is my 1/4, and I'm using the ratchet. And it's as simple as, you know, it's a self-centering tap. And it's gonna do its thing. Seem easy at first. I'm going to pull itself in with a little bit of pressure. Do not, if it's hard to turn, back it out. So start to get a little bit hard. I'm backing it out. I'll go again. A little bit tough. I'm going to back it out. Some people do this with a impact. That's not for me, because if you break one of these, if you've tapped very many holes, you probably have broken one, because they're super hard material. You get a little bit sideways. I'm backing it out. We're almost through. And just take your time on this, because like I said, this is definitely the hardest part, and it's the one that will ruin your day if you force it. There we go. I'm actually going to take this all the way out, see what kind of progress we're making. You can kind of see that. I'm going to put a little bit more. this back in, turn it with my fingers up to a certain point. These little flutes are meant to kind of make way for the material, but sometimes it still gets bound up a little bit. So that's pretty tight, so I'm going to back it out. Now, this is my approach. Definitely don't use a real long handle here where you can put a lot of torque on it. You can feel kind of on the other side it's actually coming through just a bit. Oh, there we go. Just making headway just a little bit at a time. Let's see my progress. No need to necessarily run it once you make it to where you need to make it. And the reason you have to tap the hole is because it's really hard to get in behind here. So if you wanted to put a nut back there, it doesn't work out so well. Okay, we are almost through. Have patience. Everything else can go fast. Don't make this one go fast. I think it's really through, but I think it's broke through there. A little tough. And when you are tapping, try not to put any, that's why those taps a lot of times are T-handles, not to put any side stress on it. Okay, just take it just a little bit further. And we'll call this one good. I can feel it on the other side, it's out. You can run it all the way down if you want. There we go. So I'm not going to run it all the way down. Pull this out, nice and easy. So there you go. One hole tapped. I'm going to stop the timer while I go and get another bolt. Let me stop it here. So and I didn't stop the timer for a few things. We're 42:18, so not doing too bad on time. Let me go get a bolt and get ready to tap the second hole. Okay, I am back. And it's spring break here in Arkansas, so I had to take my kids out to dinner last night. So I didn't get to finish this. It's the next morning. It's storming outside, so it's a good time to work inside. But we're gonna start back up. Now, the last thing that we did was tap this hole in the frame. And just to give you a little bit of context of how I've been thinking about this, here's the flow divider that we're using. And the mounting holes based on the plumbing of this flow divider are on this side. So we've got one hole here. It would be nice if we could put another hole in the top potentially so that we could use nuts on the back, because you can get to the top here. The reason we're tapping these holes is because up underneath here, once you put your flow divider on and you try to reach behind there, I think it's going to be really tough. And that's why recommending that you tap the hole. Now, I do want to call out that if somebody wants one of these kits, but you're thinking to yourself, you know, I've tried to tap a hole. Every time I've done it, I've broke a tap. I, you know, just don't want to try it. And you don't have anybody that can help you out with it. Then I think one of your options is going to be is just putting a single bolt in the top here. This doesn't need, this is a heavy piece of steel here, but it doesn't need a lot of support here. You're going to have 3 tubes connected to it. So a strong bolt here with a nut on the back really would be enough. I think I'm doing 2 really just for good measure. Just to make sure, and as a little bit of a fail-safe. But I'll tell you that when I first developed this, I was running this without not being secured to this at all. And, you know, I only ran it for maybe 10 to 15 hours. And so I don't think that's enough time for me to say, look, you don't really need to secure it. I think most people are going to want to secure it. But I just want to give you that option there. And if you were to do that, and let's say one of these tubes failed because you didn't have that bolt, let me know, because to me that's actually a test for me. Like if you were to put this on and you ran it for 200 hours, no issues, no sign of fatigue in the tubes or anything like that, you know, that's a test for me that I can tell other people, look, you know, Joe's out there, he's been running this for 200 hours and doesn't have any tubes. Doesn't have any issues, and he didn't even secure it to the frame. I don't know that I can recommend that, but it's at least an anecdotal story that I can tell. It's worth it to me. Now, and I say it's worth it to me, you run it, let's say you run it for 100 hours and this tube messes up. Okay, well, I'll send you another tube. We'll put it on there and you'll need to secure it after that. So I'm open to some flexibility. Now, if you do this, let me know ahead of time if you don't mind. Say, hey, Kevin, we decided not to tap the holes. We think it's going to be fine for our use. That way I'll have a heads up if you are, you know, and I'll check in with you to get that information. Again, some of this is a learning process since this is a new product. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, the other thing that happened, and I looked back at my previous video and my timer reset. So my timer, I think, was at 4218. I'm just going to start a new timer here. We'll add it up at the end to 4218 and see where we end up. So let me go ahead and start this timer. And our next process here is to get that, we're going to test fit this. We'll get that second hole marked, and then we will drill and tap it. So there we go, timer's on. Put our flow divider in place. Start to just get these started. Don't have to snug them all the way down. And then put this bolt, since we've already got this one bolt in here. Oh, we do also need the spacer. Now, if you get this kit and you don't have the backhoe at the time you get the kit, it'll come with a spacer. If you have a backhoe that's a 260B, it will not come with a spacer. And if you have a backhoe that's a 260, I'm actually working on that configuration right now. I can't say that it'll come with a spacer or not. I have a feeling that it's not going to come to us with a spacer, because with the 260 backhoe, you actually have a subframe that comes around this way, and I think I'm going to mount it to this side of the subframe. Now, the advantage that if that's how it happens, is that you won't need to tap anything. I'm just going to use nuts because we'll have easy access to it. So that'll be one advantage to anybody having a 260, but it's a tight fit because of that subframe that comes around here. I don't know what it's going to be. I've got the part on the way, but I have a feeling it's going to be a pretty tight fit. So let's see here. We make sure we're snug down. Okay, so we're snug, and honestly, like I said, that would be enough. But let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to try to, you know, make sure that's as level as possible. 5/16 punch again. Get our mark. Let's take these off. And another thing that's going to happen that I've had happen, so I can speak to it, is once you put all of this on and you snug everything down, you know, these tubes are bendable, but they're hard to bend. This is especially hard to bend. Now this one, you can actually take and bend with your hands. It'll be hard, but you can take and bend with your hands. So if you're off by a little bit, you know, and you say, well, I need to move over to the left, you know, take that. You can make that bend, excuse me, with your hands. If not, you can put it in a vise, but make sure you don't crease it. If you do crease it, let me know, we'll get you a new tube. This one is tough. It's a little harder to bend. I don't believe you'll really have to do any bending. I think what you'll mostly have to do is do some adjustment to this fitting. Hopefully it's going to be pretty close though. All right, so let's pull this bolt out with our spacer. Let's see if I can. All right, see if I can drill this without moving my camera or shut my timer off. Put it on high. Oh, you know what? I'm going to use a little bit of. My favorite lubricants is Seafoam. Kind of use it for everything, but it's a good cutting oil too. Make sure you get that hole nice and cleaned out like that. All right, I don't know if I can do this without moving the camera, but I'm gonna try. Just so I don't have to stop my timer. Below this. If you just have something like WD-40, that'll work fine. There we go. So remember, and I try to keep my hand in the center here to help keep it centered, one, but also so I don't put too much torque on it. You have to put a little forward pressure. It'll pull itself in, but put a little bit of pressure forward. So it's starting to get tough for me. You know, and if you were out here, hold in the center, but don't torque it too hard. So it's starting to get a little bit tough. I'm gonna back it off just a bit. Let it clean itself out. Let's go this way again. Yeah. And that's what I'm really doing. I mean, I'm not a professional tapper, but to me, this seems to work in the videos I've seen. As you start to move some of that material in there, it can get bound up. There we go. If it's cutting good, keep going. That's a little bit tight. Excuse me. And you know, if you really were worried, I think getting one of those T-handles now, I'm not sure, I haven't used one except one time, and it was on a bigger tap, so it's probably going to interfere with this. I don't know if those all ratchet. Just keep that in mind too. There we go. I feel like there's a lot of material in there, so I'm going to back this all the way out. Get a little lubricant on. Probably, if I had my air compressor closer, I would just shoot out this, but I think it'll be fine. Yep. And when you break through, I mean, it's probably through, I can't get my finger back there, on the other side. It's a little tough. But once it gets all the way up on the tap, you'll kind of feel it and it'll get nice and easy to go all the way through. I think we're getting close. There we go. Now I can tell that it's as easy as it's going to get. So we'll back it back out. And there's our second hole tapped. So that took 8 minutes, not too bad. Add that to the 42, we're around 50 minutes. So we're still under an hour. Let's go ahead, find my other bolt. Rather than stop the timer and go find the lock washer that I was supposed to have, I'm going to put this top bolt in without a lock washer. Just because I don't have to stop the timer here. So, put our bolt back on here. Just get it started, because we also have and this does have a lock washer. We also have a spacer we want to put on here. Oops, I dropped it. Okay. I think I'm on here. See if we can get it started. First run through with your new bolt might feel just a little bit tight, just because if you have some material in there. Actually, I'm going to back that out. Let me do this one here. All right. All right, we are tight. So, 12 minutes in, we can now connect our steering tube connect our main feed tube. And remember, this is loose on the other side still, so that's why you want to make sure you have that flexibility. As everything comes together, it'll cinch down. These are compression nuts, and I don't know if you can tell, but you know, it'll seat here. So right now you can kind of see this one isn't precisely right, but it'll find its seat for you. There we go. There we go. You don't have to torque these down super tight, just make sure, oops, let me get that started right. The important part is to make sure, let me loosen this up. Give me a little extra flexibility here, there we go. You really want to get both sides started and then snug them down. Okay. That one's tight. Oops, move the camera. 15/16 here. Tighten this guy up. That one's tight. And then the last one is this bolt here. I'm going to do from the top. Snug that down so that our O-ring is seated in the PTO valve. All right, so 14 minutes there. I'm going to pause it because I have to go get a part and I want to reposition this camera. So I'll be right back. Okay. So I've got my camera repositioned, and what we're going to work on now is the last tube. We're almost done with this. This is the implement tube. And we also have a tube. Can you see? No, can't see. Let's see. So implement tube here. We're going to connect that into this. So I'm going to focus here first because this is where you're going to put on an adapter, at least with the current kit. And I'm going to do it from the top side. All you do is thread on this adapter to the existing, oops, here's what I forgot to do. Forgot to start the timer. Here we go. Let's start it. And that probably took me 10 seconds to do, so I'm going to let 10 seconds run. I'll talk here. So we've put that adapter on, and now we have this tube here. I'm going to back this out. I think you'll be able to see all of this. Okay, so this tube will connect here. These are a slightly different fitting called an O-ring face seal, but they still use tubes, or they still use O-rings. So again, you don't have to torque these down like you might torque down a pipe thread. And so also put this one on here, and this is the easiest one to do because it has some flexibility in it by how it's designed. All right, so, and these are 13/16. So I'm going to go to the top side. Got everything loosely connected. So I'll finish up this connection. So it's nice tight. This connection here. Or I could do this from the bottom, I'll do it from here. Tighten that guy up. And the last one is here. Now these tubes aren't painted. Haven't painted them yet, but I wanted to make this video, so I've been running, I don't think I've run any painted tubes on mine, but when you get your tubes, they'll be painted. All right. There we go. Snug, snug on this side. Let's keep the timer rolling. Come over to this side here. See how that looks. We're at 16 minutes at this point. Go ahead and snug this guy down. Now, like I said, this might, the very first time, it might be just a little bit tighter, but as if you ever take it off and put it back on, everything will fall right into place. These rigid tubes don't have a lot of give, just by, hand pressure at least. And that's by design. So this one's on, let's see here. Snug this down. All right. We're set. We've got our feed tube. Let me stop my timer. 1750. Obviously I have to add that to 4218. Oops. We have our feed tube. Comes around. Connects to our flow divider. Redirects our flow for steering. And our flow for our implements. So that's it. Now, one thing I'll do here, I'll show you, is this. This is the adjustment screw. And I'm going to take this off, so we're going to make this adjustment here shortly. This is the adjustment screw, and this, since this wasn't one made to ship out yet, I haven't adjusted it. I think from the factory they come at 5 gallons per minute. I'll adjust it close for you, but I'm going to show you a procedure to adjust it based on how you want to do it. So this is the adjustment screw, but what we're going to do next is start up the tractor and make sure we don't have any leaks. So let me see what the best camera angle for that is, and we'll get that going. Okay, I don't know that there's a good camera angle as I was thinking about this, so what I'm going to do is kind of carry you around here. So before I start it, here's where you want to look. First startup, you want to look here and here, obviously. The flow divider here, 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 up here, and right here. That's that could possibly have a leak, I guess, but not as concerned about that because that's going to go right back where it was. Like I said, if you have to take this off, it'll all work out. So what I'm going to do, since I'll set this up when it comes to you, but it's essentially set for 5 gallons a minute from the factory. We'll open this up a quarter of a turn, and that'll be pretty close to 2 gallons a minute when we get started. So I'm going to start it, and then I'll show you the procedure for, let's see here, for setting this up. So 1749, we'll start our timer, and let's come over here and start the tractor. Not sure how well you'll be able to hear me at this point. Implements are working, but what we can do, back this down a bit. If the steering is plenty, back it down an 1/8 of a turn. Get a feel for the steering. That's about the same. This should be faster. basically what you are tuning it for. What you're tuning it for is the feel of the steering that you want. You'll know when it's a little bit too tough. So about right there, maybe 1/8 of a turnout. This is off, so about right there. It's going to be around 1.5 to 2 gallons a minute. Now I can't put a flow meter on each one of these. You know, if you get the steering, and this is pretty sensitive, so if you get the steering, you're like, that's just a little bit tougher than what it was before. Just back it out just a little bit, counterclockwise, and you'll feel just even that small turn. You'll feel it loosen up. But just know, you know, we're at idle here, so if you've seen my other videos, you're going to see that really your implements start to speed up, especially with the stock pump. This is stock pump. Your implements are going to start to speed up once you get it a much faster RPM. So 20 minutes in, we have everything on. We've confirmed there are no leaks. We've set up our speed, and all that's left to do is put this thing back together. So let me figure out the best way to position the camera, and we'll go from there. So we're in the home stretch. We've got everything on. We've confirmed there are no leaks. The system is running, and I think the best way, you know, you're not going to be that excited to watch what I'm about to do, which is put the tractor back together, and all that's left is really to put the seat on and put the 3-point hitch on, which again, you can count that or not count that as far as the installation time. I'm going ahead and counting it because I think that it's a real world example. I tried to keep this as real world as possible. Just to get, you know, I don't want to tell you, and I've been telling people 90 minutes, it looks like, you know, about an hour, you know, because I haven't been rushing anything. I think most of you guys are probably going to do this in about 45 minutes. If you take your time, probably about an hour at the end of this, because I left the timer running for some of this and included things that might not be included, like the 3-point hitch. I mean, I think it's basically going to come out at about an hour. So I'm not very good at editing video, but I'll probably speed this part up so you don't have to labor through it, but I do want to get the time on it. So here we go. So right now we're at 20 minutes, 10 seconds, and we have to add 42, so we're at 62 minutes. All right, timer's going. This is not the right seat. Oh. Probably not a mistake that you're going to make. This is the right seat. 1023 EF. Seems heavy, big. All right. So I've got my thing here. Oh, two last things I forgot. I never put my PTO shield on, but that is a piece. $34.04, $42.18 I think was the other, I'll confirm that. So 76 minutes and 22 seconds, completely done. At a leisurely pace, I would say. All right, I hope that's helpful. Hope that gives you a sense of what it's going to take to install the HydrosPlus Performance Kit. This is the kit only. I'll do a separate video on the pump. Pump is very easy. I've already had one video out showing what it takes to swap it, but I don't have a pump developed for this particular tractor yet, so I'll show that on my other tractor. So hope that was helpful, and thanks for watching.